Hi everybody, welcome to our next class in our Tantra course here. So we're just going slowly through Lama Yeshe's introduction to Tantra, also called the sort of Vision of Totality. So we'll get started with our little meditation here on the Heart Sutra. Just going to switch glasses. Okay, reading glasses are on, ready to go. Homage to the perfection of wisdom, the Blessed Mother. Thus I have heard at one time the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajgir in Mass Vulture's Mountain, together with a great assembly of monks and nuns and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. That time the Blessed One was absorbed in the concentration of countless aspects of phenomena called profound illumination. That time also Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, was looking perfectly at the practice of profound perfection and wisdom, looking perfectly also at the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Then through the power of Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom? Thus he spoke, and Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, replied to Venerable Shariputra as follows. Shariputra, whatever son or daughter of the lineage wishes to engage in the practice of profound perfection wisdom, should look perfectly like this. Subsequently, looking perfectly and correctly, also the five aggregates being empty of inherent existence. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is none other than form, and form is none other than emptiness. Likewise, feeling, discrimination, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, this all phenomena are emptiness, having no characteristics. They are not produced and do not cease, yet no defilement, no separation from defilement, and they have no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discrimination, no compositional factors, and no consciousness. There is no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mentality, no form, no sound, no smell, no taste, no tactile object, no phenomenon. There is no I element, so forth, up to no mentality element, also up to no element of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance, and no exhaustion of ignorance, so forth, up to no aging death, and no exhaustion of aging and death. Likewise, there is no suffering, origin, cessation, or path, no exalted awareness, no attainment, also no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, because there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide in the perfection of wisdom. Their minds have no obstructions and no fear. Passing utterly beyond perversity, they attain the final nirvana. Also, all Buddhas reside perfectly in the three times, having relied upon the perfection of wisdom, became manifest, complete Buddhas in the state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of perfection of wisdom, the mantra of great knowledge, the unsurpassed mantra, the equal and unequal mantra, the mantra that thoroughly pacifies all suffering, since it's not false, should be known as the truth. The mantra of perfection of wisdom is proclaimed, Tadam Gata Paragata Parasamgati Bodhisattva. Shariputra, Bodhisattva, great beings, should train the profound perfection of wisdom like this. Then the Blessed One arose from that concentration and said to Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the great being that he'd spoken well. Good to go to son of just like that, since it's like that, just as you have revealed, in that way the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced until they get as well as rejoice. The Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, Spirit of Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva, the Great Being, the entire circle of disciples, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, demigods, and spirits, were delighted and highly praised what had been spoken by the Blessed One. Okay, so let's take a moment to do our meditation here. We can feel that we're seated in a wide open space here. Ground like lapis lazuli, sort of like a vast open plain, beautiful dome of a blue cloudless sky above us, beautiful bright luminous blue sky. And our surrounds here, we're surrounded by all sentient beings. So Mother on our left, Father on our right, people we love the most behind us as support, and people we like the least or have karmic debts with in front of us as objects of our practice and bodhicitta. Moving out from there, people from all over the world, all natural ecosystems here, from the animal realm, from little tiny beings like little insects and so forth, even little microbes, all the way up to big mammals and birds and so forth. Countless beings in the spirit world, all the different planes like astral, ethereal, elemental planes, celestial beings, gods and demigods, and countless beings in lower states of rebirth, hungry ghost beings and hell beings. All of us here together in sort of like a beautiful family of sentient beings. So in the space above us, in the sky, in front of us, is Buddha Shakyamuni's higher tantric form, Sambhogakaya form, Conqueror Vajradhara. And you can have him on a lion throne, multicolored thousand-petal lotus, and sunseat, or you can just have him sort of floating in space, if you like, in the sky. And he's in lotus position, his arms crossed at his heart here, beautiful sapphire blue body made out of lighter energy. And he's wearing a crown and silks and jewels. He's got a bell in his left hand, Vajra or a thunderbolt scepter or dorje in his right. And at his heart's a beautiful, on a sun disk, beautiful Hum letter, H-U-M in English, or the Tibetan or Sanskrit letter, softly radiating out sort of rainbow-colored lights like white, blue, green, red, and yellow in all directions. And feel that Conqueror Vajradhara is our teacher, our guru, all the teachers we've had in this life, as well as all holy beings, all light beings, all Buddhas, all synthesized into one. So taking refuge, I and all sentient beings to achieve a limit, go for refuge to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So in particular, let's sort of take refuge on behalf of ourselves and all sentient beings. Setting our intention here, refuge in the Buddha jewel, Dharma jewel, and the Sangha jewel. So Buddha being a great teacher like our doctor, Sangha being like the nurses and EMTs, that's our spiritual community, and the medicine that we're all sort of taking to get better. Medicine or antidote to all of our sufferings of our body and mind is the Dharma jewel. So really taking refuge or trust or confidence in that. And through the virtues we collect by giving the perfections, may we become a Buddha for the benefit of all. So now just setting our bodhicitta intention. May everything we do be for the enlightenment of all sentient beings. May we become Buddha, that we end up teaching all sentient beings how to become Buddha too. Teach all beings how to self-liberate. So generating love, compassion, joy, and equanimity. Again, wanting all beings to be happy, not wanting them to suffer, wanting the everlasting joy, happiness of nirvana, or full enlightenment. Sort of positive, completely creative potential, sort of sense of totality and fullness, completeness, that happiness that comes with that. And the equanimity of a completely balanced mind of equanimity here, beyond all hope and fear, hatred and attachment, sort of a warm, open, friendly attitude or behavior towards all sentient beings, sort of seeing all sentient beings as family. Let's say, may everyone be happy, may everyone be free from misery, may no one ever be separated from their happiness, and may everyone have equanimity, free from hatred and attachment. Now offering the 7 limbs to make our practice Buddhist here. With body, speech, and mind humbly I prostrate, and make offerings both set out and imagine. I confess my wrong deeds from all time, and rejoice in the virtues of all. Please stay until samsara ceases, and turn the wheel of Dharma for us. I dedicate all virtues to great enlightenment. Now offering the mandala offering, purified universe, just at our hearts. As a way of opening our hearts, have a great mind of generosity and gratitude, and opening up to Conqueror Vajradhara and all holy beings. Circle of reciprocity, making an offering to them, receiving energy or blessings or grace back from them in sort of a circle of energy here. The ground sprinkled with perfume and spread with flowers, a great mountain, 4 lands, sun and moon, seen as a Buddha land and offered thus, may all beings enjoy such pure lands. I offer above any sense of loss, objects that lead to my attachment, hatred, and confusion, friends, enemies, strangers, enjoyments. Please accept these and bless me to be released from the 3 poisonous minds of anger, attachment, and ignorance. Send forth this jeweled mandala to you, precious Guru. Om Idam Guru Rana Mandalakam. Niyatiyami. And now reciting our long room stages of the Path to Enlightenment prayer, sort of as our prep for our Tantric study here. The path begins with strong reliance on my kind teacher, source of all good. Oh, blessed be this understanding to follow him with great devotion. This human life with all its freedoms, extremely rare, with so much meaning. Oh, blessed be this understanding to follow all day and night to seize its essence. My body, like a water bubble, decays and dies so very quickly. After death come results of karma, just like the shadow of a body. With this firm knowledge and remembrance, blessed be to be extremely cautious, always avoiding harmful actions and gathering abundant virtue. Samsara's pleasures are deceptive and give no contentment, only torment. So please bless me to strive sincerely to gain the bliss of perfect freedom. Oh, bless me so that from this pure thought comes mindfulness and greatest caution, to keep as my essential practice the doctrine's root, the pratimoksha. Just like myself, all my kind mothers are drowning in samsara's ocean. Oh, soon then I see and release them. Bless me to train in bodhicitta. But I cannot become a Buddha by this alone without 3 ethics. So bless me with the strength to practice the Bodhisattva's ordination. By pacifying my distractions and analyzing perfect meanings, bless me to gain the union of special insight and quiescence. When I become a pure container, through common paths, bless me to enter the essence practice of good fortune, the supreme vehicle, Vajrayana. The 2 attainments both depend on my sacred vows and my commitments. Bless me to understand this clearly and keep them at the cost of my life. By constant practice in 4 sessions, the way explained by holy teachers, bless me to gain both the stages which are the essence of the Tantras. May those who guide me on the good path and all my companions all have long lives. Bless me to pacify completely all obstacles, outer and inner. May I always find perfect teachers and take delight in holy Dharma, accomplish all grounds and pass swiftly, and gain the state of Ashardhara. So with this, we can just ask Conqueror Vajradhara to bless our body, speech, and mind, saying you are the synthesis of all Buddha jewels, synthesis of all Dharma jewels, and synthesis of all Sangha jewels. Your body, speech, and mind are one with these 3 jewels. Please grant us your blessings. So with this, we can feel Conqueror Vajradhara starts to get really, really small. Like the size of a little sunflower seed or so, even smaller if you like. And maybe like a little tic-tac mint. He comes to the crown of our head. It's like a little blue diamond or a little blue piece of lapis or sapphire. Enters the crown of our head and then descends to our heart. Again, like it's just like dropping a little bit of blue food coloring into a glass of water. It completely dissolves. And his mind and our mind become one. Just feel all the wisdom, compassion, joy, and power go directly into us. Again, we can feel great spaciousness, joy and bliss, and great wakefulness here. so coming out of meditation now, feeling all the energy and the blessings of the Buddhas, informing our mind here and our body. And yeah, let's get into today's class here. So last time we were saying Lama Yeshe it's the chapter that we're looking at is called Emerging from Dissatisfaction. So this is good. It's the idea of sort of getting on the path for leaving samsara, dissatisfaction, and suffering. So he says there's three prerequisites for Tantra, and these end up being the three principal paths. So I've mentioned this before in our classes on sort of preparation for Tantra a little bit in the sutra classes that I've done, particularly on the three principal paths, stuff on karma and emptiness and so forth. In the Gelugpa tradition, all of our sutric study or open teachings, in particular the graduated path or stages on the path to enlightenment, Lamrim, teachings from Atisha and Lama Tsongkhapa. Basically, all those teachings, you can slot them into the three principal paths. These are the three things that you kind of need to get fully enlightened as a Buddha. And these three principal paths are renunciation, bodhicitta, or the awakening mind, and wisdom realizing emptiness, which is usually they just say wisdom. So they basically say, like, if you want to get enlightened in 5 lifetimes, they always say there's 5 prerequisites or 5 conditions you need. So the first 3 are the 3 principal paths: renunciation, bodhicitta, wisdom realizing emptiness. And the next 2 are the 2 stages of Anuttara Yoga or Highest Yoga Tantra practice, being generation stage or K-Rim, sort of the imagination stage, when we want to go to creative stage, and then the Zogrim, or the completion or finishing or fruition stage. So when you add those 5 things together, kind of serially, you have to go renunciation, bodhicitta, emptiness, then embark on the tantric journey, preferably if you want to get enlightened in 1 lifetime, rather than, let's say, Kriya Tantra, they say it takes a few lifetimes, maybe 2 or 3 or something like that. I don't know. It depends on people's karma. And then there's often thought that the 3 lower classes of Tantra, Kriya or Action Tantra, Charya or Performance Tantra, and Yoga Tantra, all dovetail into Highest Yoga Tantra anyway. That's sort of what I've been told. I don't know if that's true, but just basically your path will lead you into, no matter what, just with the blessings, the instruction, the commentary, the help by your teachers, as well as on a visionary level, you end up getting sort of funneled into Highest Yoga Tantra, into that path anyway. And so you will complete both of these stages of the generation stage and completion stage, and reach full enlightenment in 1 lifetime, preferably, or soon enough after that. So Lama Yeshe, what I like is, I've always felt, having done my master's in philosophy, what you see, I've always been a fan, even though I said a lot, what they used to call continental philosophy. So I studied a lot of modern Neo-Kantian, Hegelian phenomenology and post-structuralism and philosophy of language. I spent a lot of time, I did my MA on Quattrocento Italian Renaissance philosophy of language. That's what I like the most, because I ended up really going more into Nietzsche and into the Renaissance thinkers. But I have, nevertheless, a pretty wide maybe not, I don't want to sort of boast or necessarily say deep, but I really spent a lot of time studying Anglican Aramaic, in particular early 20th century English analytic philosophy, which is some of my favorites, to be honest. And so anyway, blah, blah, blah. What I'm going on with like this is I'm still a big fan of what they call very out of fashion philosophy, ordinary language philosophy. Wittgenstein's probably my favorite philosopher, or pretty well is my favorite, I'd have to say. I've got some other ones as well. But I've always liked him in particular. He's my favorite philosopher. I like Gilbert Ryle and even some of the stuff Peter Strawson and others, G.E. Moore, did on ordinary philosophy. I think there's a lot of wisdom in that. So where I'm going with that is, you always end up doing work when you're doing that kind of philosophy on meanings of words and concepts. delineating, defining, getting clear on what words mean, how they work, how words and concepts go together, these kinds of things. And you do this this is a whole thing in hermeneutics too, after you study Heidegger and Gadamer and even sort of what they call deconstruction or, post-structuralism, is it's always a question of the meaning of words too. So where I'm going with this is that anytime you always come across as being this sort of didactic, intellectual, kind of foolish theologian, kind of like how many angels can dance to the head of a pin kind of person, when you end up kind of arguing or debating or getting clear or analyzing the meanings of words and concepts. People say, hey, I didn't join Buddhism to run around and argue with people and debate and translate terms and argue over concepts. I just want to meditate. But the thing is that when we're translating stuff into English or another language, whatever it is, I speak English, so obviously we're going from Sanskrit to Tibetan to English. There's a whole mediation, as you know, conceptual mediation, historical mediation, cultural mediation, all these kinds of things. Every time a set of concepts or tradition goes into another language, you sort of get a different conceptual map. So we're always having to interpret and translate and do, as Nietzsche would say, kind of like a genealogy or an archaeology of just getting clear on what terms mean. So when we even are using the words like renunciation, awakening mind, wisdom realizing, quote unquote, emptiness, we have to get clear on what these things mean. And I've always felt you have to just read lots of translations, lots of books. And I always figure if you get a lot of different translations and read them against each other. This is what I mean. I'm a huge poetry fan. So I can't speak any other language except for French. But what I love, of course, when I read poetry in French, you look at different English translations of it, and you see people's quote-unquote strategies of translation, how they choose to translate certain words or images or metaphors. And of course, as they always say, it's the big Heideggerian thing that metaphors don't cross over into different languages. It doesn't work. You can get close, but you'll never really get the whole quote-unquote metaphorical or image or tradition grammar doesn't cross over to another language, right? You can get close. And when you read good translations, you see the skill and art in it, which is why, like in Gadamer's Truth and Method, he talked about a quote-unquote fusion of horizons between two different worlds when you're doing translation. And he said it's a question at the end of Truth and Method, which is a fabulous book. I highly recommend anyone read it. There's a whole section on Greek ethics and Greek art, philosophy of art, but like in a sense of how do I say this? How can I become an ethical, artistic, aesthetics person in my life, philosophically, that I'd be able to translate better, that makes me a better translator? So I think this is important. And ironically, I still think you have to do this kind of work, not just sutra, when you're studying Lam Rim, Lo Rig, Lo Jung, all these things, but even with Tantra. A lot of times you have to get clear with your teachers and with the text. What do these words mean? What's the experience they're hinting at? What's the metaphor here? What's the analogy? It's an experience the Buddhas have, or these realized masters have, and you don't. So they're trying to sort of give you the bridge over, or give you kind of the analogy, the metaphor, to get a certain experience for you to sort of cross over, walk over to where they are. And it's hard to do, right? So we have to see how this is. So anyway, long round of a conversation to say that Lama Yeshe's translated these English words, renunciation, bodhicitta, and wisdom realized emptiness in 2-3, which he calls emerging, opening, and dissolving. So tonight we're going to talk about the emerging part of renunciation. Next couple classes we'll talk about bodhicitta, or what he calls opening, and then dissolving, or wisdom realizing emptiness. So what is renunciation or emerging? It's the mind emerging from Okay, so today's class, we're going to look at the again more the renunciation teachings that Lama Yeshe is giving, again under the sort of concept or sort of term he uses, which is emerging. So renunciation is the mind emerging from its ordinary limiting preoccupations and taking an interest in realizing unlimited, completely liberated potential. Renunciation says that Tantra can only be practiced effectively once we have become disillusioned with ordinary ways of grasping at sensory desires and seeing them leading only to pain and disappointment. Unless we see this, we will make the same mistake in our Tantric practice. Our grasping mind will grasp at any blissful sensations in our Tantric practice and continue to turn the samsaric wheel of dissatisfaction and clinging. Therefore, we need real renunciation here to actually be able to engage in Tantric practice to begin with. We usually think renunciation is religious observance. We have to study and meditate a lot and be sort of religious, so to speak. Then we will become a renunciate. But Lama Yeshe says this isn't necessarily so. We can make our spiritual practice an ordinary worldly attachment like anything else. So true renunciation is to no longer rely on sensory pleasures for our ultimate happiness. We see the futility of expecting deep satisfaction from limited transitory phenomena. So renunciation, rather than seeing as giving up pleasure and denying ourselves happiness, it means giving up unreal expectations about ordinary pleasures. It's these expectations themselves are what turn pleasure into pain, and pleasure itself isn't bad. It's our grasping or distorting, polluting attitude towards pleasure that must be abandoned. Okay, so, and then he says detachment in Tibetan, like renunciation, that the term used gives more the connotation of what's called definite emergence. It means it's a deep, heartfelt decision definitely to emerge from the repeated frustrations and disappointments of ordinary samsaric life. In other words, we're completely fed up with the reoccurring problems, so we're ready to turn away from our attachments and seek another way. Okay? So in other words, definite emergence means detaching ourselves from the sticky habit of attachment that holds us back. So going back over that now, let's just go a little bit in more detail here. So renunciation, Lana, the first thing we have to see is what are we renouncing? We're sort of renouncing our regular sort of samsaric, sort of addictive cycle of, again, like Jacques Lacan would say in jouissance, like tension and release. You know, all the frustration, and then get up, relax, and then back at it again. So playing like an accordion. We have this addictive mind or grasping that we want to be happy, we want to find lasting happiness or fulfillment. We get it from temporary things that give us sort of a hit of pleasure or temporary satisfaction, but then only serve in a lot of ways, almost on a drive level, to reproduce the same dissatisfaction in their wake. So when we're renouncing this, that's what we're renouncing. We're renouncing this particular cycle, samsaric cycle of pleasure. So what I like about Lama Yeshe, you'll see, it says what we're not rejecting is pleasure or happiness. We're rejecting samsaric pleasure, samsaric happiness. In other words, it's basically unhappiness because it's this complete sense of lack and dissatisfaction that we're giving up. We're getting rid of that and we're looking for a higher form of happiness and fulfillment and pleasure that's found right here in our lives, in our body, but it's just so close to us. It's kind of like our eyelashes where we don't even notice them, or you don't see your nose. Like, so when you cross your eyes, you can see your nose, but regularly we don't see it, right? So what we're getting rid of, so to speak, renunciation is our regular, ordinary, habitual way that we've been trained in from other people, like our whole society, but also from past lives training ourselves. This whole cycle of sort of addictive, grasping desire, that's what we're giving up. That's what renunciation here means. So we also have to give it up and sort of cross over to a new way of looking at this. Otherwise, if we keep the same framing or mindset, our tantric practice will just become, quote unquote, the photo negative of our regular worldly life. will just be chasing after pleasure with dissatisfaction, it just doing it in a religious context. Will be the same person with the same issues and same behaviors, leading to the same frustrations and disappointments, dissatisfaction. But again, like I said, rather than being in a worldly context, it'll just be in a spiritual context, right? Like a photo negative of it. And we'll be grasping, in particular, what you see is everyone, well, when you meet people that maybe suffer from this, they just get attached to all the bliss and the stuff that comes along with Tantra, in the Tantric practice. All the crazy psychic experiences, all the bliss and energy. You become what a friend of ours used to call an energy junkie. You sort of get so attracted and addicted to all the energy in your practice and all the bliss and sort of high psychic and spiritual experiences that you end up having. A friend of mine used to call it, like, you know, Tantra can end up being like, what do you call it, quote unquote, Star Wars Buddhism, where it ends up being all about the magic and funny stories and amazing beings and stuff like that. You get addicted to that. But basically, the logic of your experience, of your pleasure, of all these things is the same as a normal person. It's just, like I say, the context or sort of the framing's a little different. I would recommend one of my favorite books, of course, the absolute masterpiece classic, Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche's Cutting Through Spiritual Materials, in particular, the first famous chapter on what is spiritual materialism. And he says, unless we apply the three principal paths, basically, renunciation, bodhicitta, in particular, emptiness, and not clinging to our spiritual practice, again, we end up practicing spiritual materialism. We're having the same 8 worldly dharmas of chasing after pleasures and comforts, reputation, wealth, being liked, being praised, all these things. We're just doing it in a spiritual context. So we're the same worldly guy. Instead of just chasing after money or sex or fame or whatever, it's the same kind of stuff. We're just doing it in a religious way. Right? And of course, we do see this a lot, right? So you don't want to do that, because in a lot of ways, it's even worse, because you're fooling yourself. You think you're this higher realized spiritual being, and you're just a regular, normal, ordinary person with the same kinds of problems. So renunciation is seeing this, like we're renouncing this samsaric attachment and drive and addiction to pleasure, sort of stepping off the pendulum here. So definite emergence. So what I like about definite emergence is one of our teachers, Qigong teachers, I've seen this study with him extensively, Joe Marin. He always said, from a more Taoist point of view, rather than thinking renunciation is something you're rejecting, like cutting off in a very coarse way, like I give away all my money, I just wear rags, I live in a cave, whatever, I eat dirt, this kind of thing, like now I'm a renounced person. We all know you can do all of that and not change your mind. Wherever you go, there you are. You can have the same issues and delusions, and again, the same sort of addictions. But again, you haven't changed the inside, you've just changed your costume, the outside. So that doesn't work. If anything, it can make it all worse, because inside you're more attached, you're more confused, you're more hung up. So what Jill Marion says is that real renunciation is where you, quote unquote, like in a very organic way, outgrow things, right? And he says we outgrow things all the time. And what's happening is, he says when you outgrow something, it's, again, like an emergent property in biology. So, you know, they call logic of Francisco Varela, the famous Buddhist and cognitive scientist, he did a lot on this. They call emergent theory in biology, where the whole is greater than the sum of the parts. When you have a biological structure that grows out of something, the new abilities can't be retroactively put back in the previous package, so to speak. Like if you look at how a cell divides and gets new complexities and functioning, it's like a whole different level, and you can't go backwards. You know, it's ever developing internal complexities, right, with new abilities and new functionings and qualities and so forth. So he said it's the same thing when you outgrow something. You let it go and you never go back. You never backslide. So he gives the example of when you toilet train a kid. I might have mentioned this before in a class, but he says if you got like whatever, your little nephew or something, and they get toilet trained, let's say at 2 years old, or I don't know, I'm not a parent, so I don't know, but around that time, they'll be pooping in their pants, and then all of a sudden they no longer do. They're toilet trained. So if you say, "Oh, hey Matthew, have you ever pooped your pants?" The little kid, Matthew, goes, "Oh, that's gross. That's disgusting. I've never pooped my pants. Why would you do such a crazy thing?" But the point is, hey, you just pooped your pants last week. It's, in other words, it's almost inconceivable for them, almost on a conceptual level, to put themselves back on where they were just even a week before. Like there's been that kind of a change. And so when you outgrow things, like as a renunciation, you do this all the time. Maybe you give up smoking and you think, how did I ever smoke? Or you change a friend group. Oh, whatever, I hang around with these party people. I no longer do it. I'm a different person. But I don't want to hang out with those people anymore. I don't even want to see them. And even if I do, I won't get any pleasure. It's like I can't even relate to these people. Or all the time, hey, we did, let's say you did grade 12 chemistry or calculus. How many people remember that? Like it's so important, then you let it go, you don't even think about it anymore, right? So there's all sorts of, like fashion, you're into a certain group of fashion when you're a teenager, you get a little older, you're not interested in that. Even in hobbies, even sports. Oh, I went to the gym, I used to lift weights. Don't do that anymore. Now I just do yoga. So there's all sorts of things that you can outgrow or do. So you're emerging out of that. So all we're doing here with renunciation is a similar kind of thing. So rather than see it as some kind of this moral judgment, a morality, bad, cut and repress this and that. It's just like, been there, done that. I was really into, let's say, ultimate fighting. I did all this and Brazilian jiu-jitsu. Now I'm not. I grew up, I got hurt a few times, not in it, good luck, have fun guys doing it, but I'm done. I don't regret it, great time, done, but I'm out of it. Now I'm doing something else. Let's say I'm really into meditation or something like that. So that's why there's different, definitive emergence, so to speak. We're going to look at renunciation that way. So Lama Yeshe says, certain times in life where we naturally detach and withdraw our senses, natural renunciation here, even the attractive things can't divert us. So you can think even when you get really, really sick, it's like, I can't eat my favorite chocolate cake. I can't have sex. I got such a bad migraine, I can't even watch Netflix. Like all the time we detach from things, let's say we really like, because we have to, or we're just not in the mood, or we kind of let that go. I quit my job. I'm no longer into IT work. Done. Don't even want to see this anymore. I can't even put my head into doing that. Now I'm a contractor. I'm a carpenter or something like that, right? So, so then he says, but usually we're on the lookout for something new and different to interest or excite ourselves. Okay, we need to learn how to be naturally detached from material objects. So what's missing in us is in the inside. We have to see satisfaction is not dependent on material things, but comes from an inner simplicity. The detachment here is being simpler and easygoing. And Lama Yeshe was famous for being very easygoing. And they always say this English, it was Dzogchen of like a deep relaxation of the mind, right? So Chogyam Namkha Rinpoche was Chogyal Namkha Rinpoche's being the Dzogchen master, and he was also professor. And he has a great line. One of our friends that was his student always said is, where there is tension, there is suffering, right? So like this, grasping, but then when you relax, you undo. It's like a knot in the shoelace is undone and it's gone, right? So by detaching or definitely emerging, we can be simple. We have a simplicity and openness and relaxation. We're not hung up. We don't get attached. We don't get hung up on things, right? We can loosen our grip and be more relaxed. And we have to be relaxed to really enjoy and be satisfied, to really appreciate things. If you don't know how to be simple, you'll always be miserable. So you can see this. It's easy to make fun, let's say, of people that have big addiction issues, like drug addicts or whatever. But I mean, you can even make fun of your dog, where you've got a treat, and they're like, ah, or you put the food down with our dog. He was just so into food. Like, just the moment you put it down, you just would inhale it. the food, like it'd be gone in like 5 seconds. And you think, did you even taste that? You're like jumping up and down. You're so excited. Like, did you even enjoy your food, right? So you can see this, that it, one Lama, I can't remember, he always said, there's different ways you can hold things. You can hold, let's say, my watch like this or like this, but you're still holding it, right? I can hold it in a very relaxed, open way like that. So imagine enjoying things without expectation or being tense, and just being open and relaxed and enjoying things, whether it's sex, eating, lying on the beach, not having expectations, but this is the whole Vipassana Zen thing of being in the present moment, enjoying things, right? So Tantra is not giving up pleasure. We humans have unlimited potential, and we should aim for the highest pleasure possible, realizing that ordinary pleasures are second rate, and nothing compared to the extraordinary bliss that comes from awakening latent energies in us and fulfilling our deepest potential. So ordinary pleasures are second rate and prevent us from experiencing the superior happiness of full self-realization. Our grasping at them prevents us from experiencing the superior happiness of self-realization. Or the grasping, squeezing attitude is an intoxicant that dulls our natural clarity. We become more and more enmeshed in worldly, ordinary appearances and more removed from our essential nature. So what we'll see with Tantra is the more, especially if we start going to more subtle practice, there's so much pleasure and bliss and power, positive power you get from your practice, that it's better than chasing after worldly pleasures. Again, sex, chocolate cake, sunsets, all these things are really, really nice. Great music, whatever, going around, going to play pool, whatever you want to do. But what happens, particularly in higher tantric levels, the kind of bliss that you get sort of psychically or energetically from your practice ends up being way more blissful. And it's a feeling of totality rather than lack, of fullness. And then there's a joy, there's this power, creative power that's in you. So it's not a hole you're trying to fill. It's this natural expression of positive power, creative potential, and bliss and satisfaction, almost like a grace, using almost like a Nietzschean term that way. And so Lama Yeshe says, that's what we're picking. It's like which road are you going to walk down? So the definite emergence is knowing which way to pick for, again, not being attached to the greater pleasure, but I'll pick option one rather than option two. Option two is a regular cycle of dissatisfaction, drives, and addiction. That's that side. That's path number two, B or two. Let's do the first one, which is a higher spiritual bliss, right? The experience of what George Bataille would call continuity, right? Where there's like really no self, just you and the universe are just one bliss. So renunciation is realizing our ordinary reliance on pleasure is preventing us from tasting this higher complete happiness. Because again, we're walking down the other road of addiction and dissatisfaction. So we have to break from our compulsive, constricting reliance on sense pleasures and understand they can't give us lasting happiness we desire. Relax and release expectations instead of being uptight from craving pleasure and rejecting it with or without guilt. In other words, we're craving pleasure and so uptight because we're so addicted and want it. Or again, we're enjoying it, but we might be hung up about it, have guilty feelings or regrets or issues with it. So that's that whole familiar worldly samsaric pleasure. We're going to look at the other option there. And when we do, unpleasant circumstances don't bother us as much, and we experience pleasure, we accept it with comfort, without a demand or expectation. We can be relaxed this way because we understand the pleasures are transitory and that our sights are set on an even higher form of happiness and fulfillment. So we're not overly excited over pleasure or depressed when things are bad or we don't get the pleasure we're looking for here. So in other words, Lama Yeshe is tying refuge, a real sense of refuge here, tantric refuge, in terms of renunciation. Right? So just like we've said refuge, I'm seeking refuge in a rainstorm under my umbrella. I don't want to suffer. I'm seeking with confidence the thing that will protect me. What Lama Yeshe is saying is we're going to pick the pleasure or bliss or joy that never runs out and disappoints us as the real refuge compared to the worldly refuge that never works, which is us chasing addictively after pleasures, right? worldly pleasures, changing pleasures. So in other words, he says like giving up your false sense of refuge or false refuge. We're always taking refuge in temporary pleasures or diversion with religious fervor and conviction. So we are deeply religious, fanatical people about our addictions and our pleasure. People always say, oh, I can't meditate. I can't focus on mind. Of course you can. You can focus your mind on all the stuff you're attached to. You can meditate, you can plan, you can get clear on all the details all you want, because when it comes to attachment, our minds are so trained and disciplined that way. So all we have to do is switch the object, keep the same discipline and power, you just switch it onto a spiritual object, right? So real refuge takes us out of this desperation into satisfaction. And we know that our chasing after pleasure every day at every moment, our desire and diversion to entertain ourselves is based on desperation, anxiety, and existential angst. So renunciation is to break this cycle and give ourselves the space to sort of tap our inner potential. So the moment we give up, definitely emerge out of this constricted, addictive mind, all of a sudden we have the bliss and joy and the spaciousness to go deeper, to find a real, true, lasting happiness, and even energetically more powerful bliss in our bodies with our subtle energy and subtle mind that will start evoking through our tantric practice. So I did want to read you one thing. I have read these kinds of things before, and it's a little bit of a long passage, but just to give you a sort of a taste of really letting go of worldly pleasures and seeing them for what they are. Yeah. So what I always like is I do like Arthur Schopenhauer stuff. I'm a Nietzsche more than a Schopenhauer, but Schopenhauer, if you read World as Will and Representation or a lot of his essays, when it comes to him describing samsara, very few people can match his witty, eloquent descriptions of the human condition. But he has a great thing, which is on boredom and vanity of existence. So Schopenhauer says, that human life must be some kind of mistake is sufficiently proved by the simple observation that man, or humans, is a compound of needs which are hard to satisfy, that their satisfaction achieves nothing but a painless condition in which he or she, or they, is only given over to boredom, and that boredom is a direct proof that existence is in itself valueless, for boredom is nothing other than the sensation of the emptiness of existence. For if life, in the desire for which our essence and existence consists, possessed in itself a positive value and a real content, there would be no such thing as boredom. Mere existence would fulfill and satisfy us. As things are, we take no pleasure in existence except when we are striving after something, in which case distance and difficulties make our goal look as if it would satisfy us, an illusion which fades when we reach it. Or when engaged in purely intellectual activity, in which case we are really stepping out of life so as to regard it from the outside, like spectators at a play. Even sensual pleasure itself consists in a continual striving and ceases as soon as its goal is reached. Whenever we are not involved in one or other of these things, but directed back to existence itself, so bare existence, we are overtaken by its worthlessness and vanity. And this is the sensation called boredom, which is why that, especially nowadays with our phones, we can never be bored. We can never not be distracted, because it's a catastrophe if we are, right? That should tell you a lot of things. And then, of course, the great anti-philosopher, one of my big heroes, Blaise Pascal, even though his Jansenist Catholic religion is very, very far from my own sensibility, I do love this book very, very much, and there's a lot of wisdom in it, as extreme as it can be at times. But his famous chapter on diversion is everybody should read it as a real good way of, again, creating definite emergence or renunciation for worldly pleasures. So I just wanted to read, it's a little long, but again, just for the wisdom here. Like they're all little numbered thoughts, right? Which is why Paul says originally supposed to call it Apology for Christian Religion or Defense of Christian Religion. And it's all these, he had them all numbered because eventually he was going to sort of put them into a proper text. Anyway, number 131 says diversion. Being unable to cure death, wretchedness, and ignorance. And when Pascal says wretchedness, he means our absurdity and dissatisfaction, right? So being unable to cure death, wretchedness, and ignorance, men have decided, in order to be happy, not to think about such things. So, and then I wanted to read you this longer one, because I think it's a couple of pages, but I do want to read it because it's very, very wise, which is 136 on diversion. Sometimes when I set to thinking about the various activities of men or humans, the dangers and troubles which they face at court, and this is written in the 1600s, time of the 30 Years' War, so it will show that we never really change. Okay. Dangers and troubles which they face at court or in war, giving rise to so many quarrels and passions, daring and often wicked enterprises, and so on. I have often said that the sole cause of man's unhappiness is that he does not know how to stay quietly in his room. Famous quote. A man wealthy enough for life's needs would never leave home to go to sea or besiege some fortress if he knew how to stay at home and enjoy it. Men would never spend so much on a commission in the army if they could bear living in town all of their lives, and they only seek after company and diversion of gambling because they do not enjoy staying at home. But after closer thought, looking for the particular reasons for all of our unhappiness, now that I know its general cause, I found one very cogent reason in the natural unhappiness of our feeble mortal condition, so wretched that nothing can console us when we really think about it. Imagine any situation you like, add up all the blessings with which you could be endowed. To be king is still the finest thing in the world, yet if you imagine one with all the advantages of his rank, but no means of diversion, left to ponder and reflect on what he is, this limp felicity will not keep him going. He is bound to start thinking of all the threats facing him, of possible revolts, finally of inescapable death and disease, with the result that if he is deprived of so-called diversion, he is unhappy, indeed more unhappy than the humblest of his subjects who would enjoy sport and diversion. The only good thing for men, therefore, is to be diverted from thinking of what they are, either by some occupation which takes their mind off it, or by some novel and agreeable passion which keeps them busy, like gambling, hunting, some absorbing show, in short, what is called diversion. That's why gaming in a feminine society, war and high office are so popular. It's not that they really bring happiness, nor that anyone imagines that true bliss comes from possessing the money to be won at gambling, or the hare that is hunted. No one would take it as a gift. What people want is not the easy, peaceful life that allows us to think of our unhappy condition, nor the dangers of war, nor the burdens of office, but the agitation that takes our mind off and diverts us. That is why we prefer the hunt to the capture. That's why men are so fond of hustle and bustle. That is why prison is such a fearful punishment. That is why the pleasures of solitude are so incomprehensible. That, in fact, is the main joy of being a king, because people are continually trying to divert him and procure him every kind of pleasure. A king is surrounded by people whose only thought is to divert him and stop him thinking about himself. Because, king though he is, he becomes unhappy as soon as he thinks about himself. That is all men have been able to devise for attaining happiness, those who philosophize about it, holding that people are quite unreasonable to spend all day chasing a hare that they would not have wanted to buy, have little knowledge of our nature. The hare itself would not save us from thinking about death and the miseries distracting us, but hunting it does so. Thus, when Pyrrhus was advised to take the rest towards which he was so strenuously striving, he found it very hard to do so. Telling a man to rest is the same as telling him to live happily. It means advising him to enjoy a completely happy state which he can contemplate at leisure without cause for distress. It means not understanding nature. Thus, men who are naturally conscious of what they are, shun nothing so much as rest. They would do anything to be disturbed. It's wrong then to blame them. They are not wrong to want excitement if they only wanted it for the sake of diversion. The trouble is they want it as though once they had the things they seek, they could not fail to be truly happy. That's what justifies calling their search a vain one. All of this shows that neither the critics nor the criticized understand man's real nature. When men are reproached for pursuing so eagerly something that could never satisfy them, their proper answer, if they really thought about it, ought to be that they simply want a violent, vigorous occupation to take their minds off themselves. And that's why they choose some attractive object to entice them in ardent pursuit. Their opponents could find no answer to that. Vanity, pleasure of showing off, dancing, you must think where to put your feet. But they do not answer like that because they do not know themselves. They do not know what they really want is the hunt and not the capture. The nobleman sincerely believes that hunting is a great sport, the sport of kings, but his huntsman does not feel like that. They imagine that if they secured a certain appointment that they would enjoy resting afterwards, and they do not realize the insatiable nature of cupidity. They think they genuinely want rest when all they do is want activity. They have a secret instinct diverting them to seek external diversion and occupation. That is the result of their constant sense of wretchedness. They have another secret instinct left over from the greatness of our original nature, telling them that the only true happiness lies in rest and not in excitement. That's very interesting from a Buddhist point of view. These two contrary instincts give rise to a confused plan buried out of sight in the depths of their soul, which leads them to seek rest by way of activity, and always to imagine that the satisfaction they miss will come to them once they overcome certain obvious difficulties and can open the door to welcome rest. All of our life passes in this way. We seek rest by struggling against certain obstacles, and once they're overcome, rest proves intolerable because of the boredom it produces. We must get away from it and crave excitement. We think either of present or of threatened miseries, and even if we felt quite safe on either side, boredom on its own account would not fail to emerge from the depths of our hearts, where it is naturally rooted and poison our whole mind. Man is so unhappy that he would be bored even if he had no cause for boredom, but the very nature of his temperament, and that he's so vain that if he had 1,001 basic reasons for being bored, the slightest thing like pushing a ball with a billiard cue will be enough to divert him. But, you say, what is his object in all this? Just so that he can boast tomorrow to his friends that he played better than someone else? Likewise, others sweat away in their studies to prove to scholars that they have solved some hitherto insoluble problem in algebra. Many others, again, just as foolishly, in my view, risk the greatest danger so they can boast afterwards of having captured some stronghold. Then there are others who exhaust themselves observing all these things, not in order to become wiser, but just to show that they know them, that these are the biggest fools of the lot, because they know what they are doing, while it is inconceivable that the rest should stop being foolish if they knew too. A given man lives his life free from boredom by gambling a small sum every day. Give him every morning the money he might win that day, on the condition that he does not gamble, and you'll make him unhappy. It might be argued that what he wants in the entertainment of gaming and not the winnings. Make him play for nothing, his interest will not be fired, and he will become bored. So it is not just excitement he wants. A half-hearted entertainment without excitement will bore him. He must have excitement. He must delude himself into imagining that he would be happy to win what he could not want as a gift if it meant giving up gambling. He must create some target for his passions and then arouse his desire, anger, fear for this object he's created, just like children take fright at face they have dubbed themselves. Taking fright at a face they have dubbed themselves. This is why this man, who has lost his only son a few months ago, was so troubled and pressed this morning by lawsuits and quarrels, is not thinking about it anymore. Do not be surprised. He is concentrating all his attentions on the way the boar will go, so his dogs have been so hotly pursuing for the past 6 hours. That's all he needs. However sad a man may be, if you can persuade him to take up some diversion, he'll be happy while it lasts. And however happy a man may be, if he lacks diversion, he has no absorbing passion or entertainment to keep boredom away, he will soon become depressed and unhappy. Without diversion, there's no joy. With diversion, there's no sadness. That is what constitutes the happiness of persons of rank, for they have a number of people to divert them and the ability to keep themselves in the state. Make no mistake about it. What else does it mean to be a superintendent, chancellor, chief justice, but to enjoy a positive position in which a great number of people come every morning from all parts and do not leave them a single hour of the day to think about themselves? When they are in disgrace and sent off to their country houses, where they lack neither wealth nor servants to meet their needs, they infallibly become miserable and dejected because no one stops them thinking about themselves. Anyway, I could just keep going, but you catch the drift, as they say. So anyway, that's our normal samsaric desire. We're going to get, like Pascal says, like he says, what can fill an insatiable bottomless pit is the fullness of God or the divine. Even that's true from a Buddhist point of view. But we're going to see with Tantra that that hole was never there to begin with. There's always already been a fullness there. We just have to change our mind, change the channel from the deluded false view of reality to the correct view of reality. And in particular, doing it with tantric arts and practices that open up all the energies and bliss that go together to make this possible. And then you won't be in that situation Pascal describes as being the essence of the wretchedness of the human condition. We will unveil ourselves as blissful, joyful tantric angels rather than this hungry lack, insatiable hungry lack we find ourselves as right now, having the mortal flesh and blood body that we do. There we go. So let's dedicate this for the enlightenment of all sentient beings, with the blessings of all of our gurus and holy beings, the truth of karma, and the power of pure spiritual intention. May all of our dharma wishes be fulfilled. So thank you so much, and we'll see you next time.